The Global Latin Factor Podcast.
Welcome to the Global Latin Factor Podcast. Thank you very much for joining for another great episode. As you already know, if you heard one of our episodes before, we appreciate it very much. Check us out on all social media. I feel like everybody says the same thing, but how else are you going to find out if there's any post about what we do? Well, we do. So check us out. You can Google even the Global Latin Factor or go to the website directly, thegloballatinfactor.com, and get all the information you need of all the episodes. And you can find us pretty much on all your favorite podcast outlets such as Spotify, etc. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the show. So this weekend, Sunday, I went to a car show. It was a car show, but it was hosted by a truck club, Los Primos Trucking. Big shout out going out to them here in the DFW. So it was pretty cool. If you've never been to a car show or something like that, you need to check it out at least one time and see what all they got going on, because they got some beautiful cars. It's crazy the things that they do to the cars, like customize them, add, take away. Some cars you can't even tell what it is. It's pretty cool. And they had a great turnout. They had a huge turnout, and it was awesome for them. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and start with our first Latino. And this time we're doing a lady. Her name is Mónica Lozano. So Mónica Cecilia Lozano was born on July 21st, 1956, Los Angeles, California. And she is, if you ever heard of La Opinión is one of the biggest publications there is in Espanol. And she is the chief executive officer at that place. This is actually a family business. Her great granddad started the company. Her granddad started the company. Her dad continued, and then of course she took over. And she's been working at this place and putting publications in Spanish. It is the largest publication in the United States in Spanish. La Opinión. You can check out laopinion.com, and go from there. Check out some of the things they have going on. She is one of 4 children in a generation of Mexican Americans. She was her dad was born in Texas, Ignacio L. Lozano Jr., and her mom was born in Arizona, Marta Navarro. And both of her parents, her great parents, were born in Mexico, and they were actually journalists in Mexico, and in a border town in Mexico. And the newspaper that they used to do before that, the publication, back in 1913, it was La Prensa, and it was off of San Antonio. And then from then on, it became one of the biggest publications at that time back in the days in 1913. And then from then on, they moved on. And La Prensa sold copies in different places, such as New York, Chicago, and different things like that. She and again, as I mentioned before, she took over La Opinión as one of the people that's there. A lot of the focus that she puts in as far as, so there's not a lot of real personal information about her, but she's involved, like she's considered one of the most influential Latinas. And you'll know the reason why. She holds so many board seats, it's not even funny. So if you don't know what a board member is, right? So when a company becomes a company itself and they grow big enough, then from then on, then they they go ahead and choose a board of directors. Where pretty much the board of directors they look after the investment of the shareholders. That means people that have investment in the company, and they help make decisions. So whenever you were a CEO, right, you're like the top of the food chain. There's nobody else that you will have to answer to. Of course, you don't necessarily have to answer to the board of directors, but it's one of the, as a CEO, like a video I was watching, there's really nobody that you can go to and kind of get direction. And that's the reason that the board of directors is there, so they can kind of give you a little bit of feedback, and either it's up to you to use it or not. And she's on the board of director for Walt Disney Company since 2002. and I believe Bank of America as well, different other banks, South California, Wagar Foundation, and National Council of La Raza. So, and this is just a few of them, right? She's in so many boards. And at the same time, that's why one of the reasons why they consider one of the most influential people, because even from Walt Disney to all kinds of different groups, nonprofit and for-profit companies, she is the a board member, and that's what makes her very influential. And she's always about also trying to inspire and have Latinos that are low income to strive to get a degree, not only just to be part of this, but also work to make sure they reach to get some kind of education and degree, so that way they can make something of themselves and continue growing as Latinos. And I think that's very, very special and unique that she focuses on that. Real quick fact about Latinos, or Hispanic they call it, but pretty much based on the census, it's almost the same thing, right? And this is an old data, I'm pretty sure, but they kind of track it down as far as it's just a guesstimate, right? Based on 2010 census, Hispanics are now the largest majority, with a group of 192 of 366 metropolitan areas, tongue twisted, in the U.S. It's projected that the population in the United States by July 1st, if 2050, will be 132.8 million Latinos people, and out of those, 30.2% are going to be projected to be Latinos. So we're going to be big. Latinos, for the most part, have quite a bit of kids, and that's not a stereotype. And it's not like it used to be. Like, my grandma had 10 kids. My dad had 4 kids. So it's been like lower, and it's not like it used to be back in there. But there is some Latinos that still have, a large family. Again, there's nothing wrong with it, and able to provide for them. Many that I know that have large families, they never resort to the government as far as assistance. Usually they are able to provide for their kids, send them to school, and things like that, And again, just like everybody else, trying to have their kids make sure they do the best they can for themselves and grow as people and really strive and try to help influence and really provide jobs for this country. And I'm speaking on the U.S., but in general, I mean, Latinos are everywhere, to be honest. Because when I went to the Philippines, I ran into some, I believe they were from Puerto Rico, or if it wasn't from South America. And they were working over there, and they were living over there. And I also ran into a Mexicano that was living over there. Then when I went to Europe, there was also some Latinos that were living there, So it's crazy how people just spread around all over the place. Did you know that? There was Mexicans in the Philippines, Carlos? We're everywhere. We really are. All right, so there you go. So it seems that by 2050, there's going to be a lot of Mexicanos and different Latinos. A lot of the times, we make it general as far as Latinos thinking it's all Mexicanos, but it's really not. What I'm talking about is, in general, Latinos, and we're talking about Puerto Ricans, and all of them are going to contribute to the big number that they want to put us in a group to make it the count easier. But again, it's just so many more of us. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part. So I do want to make because I think Carlos had brought it up. Because a lot of times it seems like guys want girls instead of boys. And I was listening to that episode. It sounded weird to me. Even though it's not my kid yet, it's going to be, if it is my future son, then I was like, if so happened he come around. That sounded kind of bad. So I want to apologize to my future son. If it's a kid, my bad, son. I didn't mean to. Please forgive me. If it's a son, if it's a boy. If it's a boy, I want to apologize. That's not what I meant whatsoever. For whatever reason, I have a girl's name picked out, but I let your mama pick your name. How about that? That's how we're gonna go ahead and work that out. All right, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next Latino. We have Ileana Ros Lehtinen. Ileana Ros Lehtinen. She was born in July 15 in 1952, and she's a politician, lobbyist from Miami, Florida, who represented Florida's 27 congressional district from 1989 all the way to 2019. Let me take a drink of water here. I'll be talking too much. Okay, so she was the first Latina to make it to the House of Representatives, and she was actually born in Havana, Cuba. So she was born in Havana, Cuba. She migrated to the States, and at that time, her dad was a businessman and became anti-Fidel Castro activist, and his wife was Amanda Adato. Her dad was, let me see where he at. I did not get his name for whatever reason, but yes. So they migrated to the United States. She did not become a U.S. citizen till she was 20 years old. And the reason why is because it's not that she didn't like this country and she didn't appreciate it. It's that, first of all, it costs money to become a U.S. citizen or even to do a residency. Because to become a resident, a lot of the times you have to pay some kind of fine for coming here illegally. And then you have to do the paperwork and the application and the lawyer to be able to become a resident. And from being a resident, then you have to pay an additional fee and take a test and swearing in to become a naturalized citizen. So, of course, it took her a while. She was trying to exercise her vote at that time because even though she still felt like at one time, she had in her mind she might be going back to Cuba. It wasn't happening. So, she attempted to enforce her voice, and she realized that she wasn't able to vote because she wasn't a citizen. So, she changed that, and then that's the reason why it took her a minute till she was 20 years old to exercise her vote. She received a Bachelor's of Arts in Education and her Master's of Arts in Education from Florida International University. She attended the University of Miami, where she earned her PhD in higher education. She was a teacher first before she became a politician. She was a teacher, and when she was teaching, a lot of the parents were talking to her. They're the ones that convinced her to go ahead and run for government. And a lot of the races that she won by large margins for the same reason that she taught herself as, she considered herself as like, she always won even with what they call ticket splitter. A ticket splitter pretty much is what, like, even though you might be like the Democrat, you'll do like an exception and vote Republican because you like the message that they, whoever it is, deliver. And I think that's the best way to do it. I know, I'm not trying to get too political because I don't know nothing about that stuff. I just know they speak very well and they can convince you, and they don't always have to hold their promises. Even when they say hold them accountable for that, if it's not election time, they don't really. What are you gonna do to them? Besides constantly calling them and leave a message and trying to get them to do what they promised they did. Promises they gave to you whenever they were running for whatever position. So I don't know too much about that stuff because, I feel weird about politicians in general. Not all of them. I'm pretty sure there's some that are doing. But when you have the majority of the people there, it's a different thing. And they have their own way of thinking. It's kind of hard for you even not to be influenced or not to feel peer pressure. But if you're the minority or trying to see it one way and all the majority is seeing it a different way, it's kind of hard for you to just make a difference. But the ones that are doing a great job and continue to make this and really acknowledge that they are a public servant, they're doing public service for the people, and they understand their job is. The other ones that do all kinds of stuff is crazy. And I really like the idea about the ticket splitters that even if you decide that you're identified, because once you identify yourself, it becomes kind of your identity as far as if you're a Republican. And pretty much you have to align yourself with that. But I don't think there's nothing wrong if you feel the message for the other candidate that to go ahead and split the ticket. And go with the other side if you feel that message that it relates more to your experience of the things that you have going on that will affect you. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I know you know what I mean. I'm just saying. Again, she was the first Cuban female elected to Florida state legislature first, and then she was the first Latina to get elected to the U.S. Congress. And even when I interviewed her, she was like, "What? I was the first what? Yeah, you were the first one." She was the very first one. And then, of course, after that, other women follow. And that's what I'm saying about the Global Latin Factor, right? So hopefully there's one of you, or maybe you can send this to somebody that, inspiring to be a politician. There's a woman that doesn't know any other politician besides Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which, again, I liked her. I think, here's my prediction for her. I know people are going to dislike me for this, but I feel like I gave it about 8 to 12 years. Most likely she's going to be in the talks for running for president. I guarantee it, almost. I don't know if she's going to win. I don't know if, first of all, it's a Latina. Maybe she needs to wait for 2050. 2050, maybe. She needs to hold up a little bit more when the Latinos are more. But anyway, that's my prediction. Maybe longer than that. But I feel like she's going to be in the running. I like the way she thinks. It's so weird because the way that they make it sound is so crazy. If you listen to everything of the politicians, how certain terms got made so evil that socialist ideas or whatever, all of a sudden, of all these socialists, like people that have been our dictators or whatever, all of a sudden that's the way that it's going to be. And I think it's crazy because even Social Security, it's a social program, but people that are using it that retire, they don't really, what are you going to take a lifeline from them? Just because you don't like a socialist idea? Anyways, that's enough politics for me. All right. And again, so check it out. Here's the reason why. If you want to make a difference, then there's a reason why you want to, get into politics. Is that your thing? And you want to make a difference. Okay, so she's a Republican, right? And a lot of Republicans, not every single one, from what I gather, is that a lot of them are more conservative and religious, right? Okay, so her son, Rodrigo, is transgender. So she was the first Republican member of the U.S. Congress to co-sponsor Respect for Marriage, which supported same-sex marriage. Again, even if her party didn't really necessarily at that time, and this was back in 2012, didn't feel the same way that she did, she did what I felt was right, because she could have gone against her party. But then you're living your son, or I'm my apologies, I don't know about those, how you identify, but her kid is transgender. So at that time, you're just gonna leave him hanging, and you're just gonna be like, okay, you know what I mean? So either party or family, and she chose family, and she supported, and even to this day, I'm pretty sure it was a tough decision for her to make that decision and co-sponsor and go against certain things that don't really fall in the same line of thought that her party. And you can imagine the peer pressure and the talk and everything else that she probably had to go through. And eventually, she co-sponsored, and she was one of the first ones to do so as a Republican at that time. She also has another daughter. Her name's Patricia Marie, and she has a stepmother. She's also a stepmother for Catherine and Douglas Lehtinen. And so that's her. I think it's pretty cool. Okay, so here's one thing that I want to say about all these Latinos that we talk about, right? So she's right now currently, in the last that I research, is she's getting investigated for some election funds. So the allegations are that she took some right before because now she's retired. She's not a politician anymore. She retired. However, right before she retired, there were some funds that were supposed to go to a campaign that were moved and were supposedly were used for personal use. And there still is an ongoing investigation at this time. So a lot of the time for these kind of things, usually what happens is either they do an investigation, they either return the funds and then whatever, and that's it. There's usually no jail time from what I was able to look into. But I want to say, okay, so why are you telling me about these Latinos and doing this? And she was the first Latina. This, okay, just like J-Lo, because I seen a TikTok video of this girl was, criticizing her because apparently J-Lo at one time was taking away roles for, other minorities. And like Pitbull, doing what he was doing when he was younger. Like, we just telling you the story about these people, how they overcame adversity when they were younger, and they had they had the will to, even if they found some kind of obstacle, they were able to continue and work, and they have left some influence. Now, to hopefully inspire you to, if there is an obstacle, to still get around it, and if you're really passionate about something, then you still find a way to overcome that. Okay? We're not saying that these people are saints. They're people. I'm not saying that I'm saint. And I'm not trying to prepare you to, in case you Google something and you find me that I got arrested a couple of times, all of a sudden I'm the worst person ever. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's that we're not trying to preach that these people are saints and we're, goody two-shoes or whatever. We're people at the end of the day. We make mistakes, and same thing with them. But I feel like the impact that they've done, that they can inspire somebody, know that they came from almost dirt to become like mega famous and mega successful and make a lot of money, or be an immigrant from Cuba fleeing a dictator and then getting and becoming the first, is something to talk. Now, what you do after that, and I don't know if the allegations are true or not. It's not. I don't do that stuff. I don't do none of the investigating stuff. It's up to you to become the person after that, after you be successful. If you're going to be like a horrible person, or you're going to be a good person, or, you're just going to be a human peer, a good person in general. However, there is consequences for things. Whether she did it or not, we don't know. It was real weird because they said it might have been an accounting error, but I don't know about all that. So if it wasn't or not, that's not the point of it. The reason why I'm talking about it, because she was the first Latina at the U.S. Congress at the end of the day, and that's big. And what you do after that, I hope that you strive to be a better person and have to answer to some questionable things that happen, and just avoid it whatsoever, because there is consequences at the end of the day for everything. And again, even though her party might not align with her belief, even she had to support her family member, and eventually, she did co-sponsor a bill that's making a difference in people's lives. All right. We're going to be talking about... All right, so I want to touching up on pain, right? We talked about it before, but I forgot to tell you the story that I heard before. So there was I forget and I'm like Pitbull right now, because all these motivational videos, sometimes I'll be just putting in and listening in the background, and eventually some of them will just stick. So there's a story about this hermit crab, these little things that look like crabs, hermit crabs, that they live in the ocean, and they live in little shells, right? So they go from shell to shell. So they go into a shell, and they go in there, take over the space. And at the beginning, they don't fulfill the entire space of the shell. So they grow and they grow and they grow until they take the entire space of the shell. And at that time, there's so much pressure because they almost took over the entire shell. They eventually, so much pressure and pain that they have to move on to a bigger shell, and then eventually, grow into that one. Meaning that there's a reason. I'm not saying put yourself through pain, but if you are going through some struggle and pain right now, just know that some of this is necessary for growth. If a hermit crab would stay in the same place all the time, it would never attempt to just take the entire space of that shell, then it would just never grow and stay the same size, and it would never. But because of that pain and that pressure, makes him move and search for something bigger and get there and take over that, and so on and so forth. And it's almost the same thing that happens to people in life. That if you're feeling pain, and generally, I'm just speaking from experience, it does end up being something beneficial for you, and it helps you grow. So if you're going through it, if you're hearing, for whatever reason, if you are listening to this right now, you were searching for something, and you were searching most likely for something like this, for these kinds of words that I'm saying, for the same reason that why things are feeling this way. And again, pain is all right. It's not a huge. It's a huge deal at the time when you experience in it. However, if you come out of it, I guarantee you, you'll be a lot stronger, just like the hermit crab, every single time. All righty, we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next Latino Global Latin Factor. This one, we taking it all the way to Puerto Rico with Edgar Martinez. Edgar Martinez was born in January 2nd in 1963. His nickname, you might know him from his nickname, Gar for Edgar, El Papa, or Papi. You like that nickname, don't you? Don't lie. I'm gonna lie. It's kind of I mean, I wouldn't call him that. I'm just saying it's kind of cool. He's an American professional baseball player and coach. He played for the Major League Baseball, and he was you know what a DH is? You know anything about baseball, Carlos? DH. You know what a DH is? Designated hitter. He is considered to be one of the most successful and best designated hitters, and also a third baseman for the Seattle Mariners. And he played for them from 1987 to 2002, and also served as a hitting coach for the Mariners from 2015 to 2018. Okay, so I was doing all my research that I do about him. So his parents, when he was young, his parents divorced, and then they got back together, and then they came and they were gonna take him to New York and live over there. So he hid on top of the roof of his house for like an hour, and they were looking for him all over the place. Like, where you at? Like, we can't find him. Well, we gotta go. And eventually they left him behind. So they left him behind. So when his parents divorced, he went with his grandparents, and that's where he was with. And then they came try to take him away. He was hiding. He was hiding for like about an hour or so, and then eventually they gave up and they took off, and he stayed. And the story goes that if so happened to be that they took him, then most likely he might have not even played baseball, because his brother did leave, and he was a baseball player. But when he got to New York, he didn't play ball anymore. So it would have been that. So I watched the movie. You know what I found out? I really enjoy movies. I really thoroughly enjoy the movie. I don't think for me it's a waste of time, even though I feel like I should be doing something productive. I really like watching movie. It really gives me satisfaction watching a good movie. And I watched one the other day. It's called Grader. I believe it's on Netflix. I mean, plugging Netflix. They need to hook me up. What's up, Netflix? Holla. And so Grader is about this football player. So I'm not going to spoil it for you. So the part that I like the most is that this guy wanted to play for Arkansas, and it's based off of a real story. I don't have the names. I'm just giving you a little narration of the part that I liked. So he wanted to go to Arkansas. They went to visit, him and his brother went to visit the school. They looked at it, and one of the coaches, I believe he was part of the line. He was going to be a linesman. He looked at him. He said, good luck. You know, maybe you could try some other school. Yeah, I don't think we're going to make it. You're not big enough, and you're not heavy enough. You need to at least be 300 pounds, and then we'll see. And then his brother was like, well, we came. We talked to him. You know, it's, good try. The main dude went to the vendor guy selling some snacks and bought a couple of snacks from him. Like, what are you doing? His brother asked. And he's like, he said, I got to be 300 pounds. You see what I'm saying? Like, he didn't see the obstacle of like, you're not cut out for this. You're too small. You're not. No, he saw it as, I need to go ahead and eat more because I need to be 300 pounds in order for me to even have a chance to make it. And remember Franklin Chang Diaz? They told him in order for him to join NASA, he had to be a citizen in the letter. So he could have read it as like, oh, well, I'm not a citizen. I'm over here, really far away. I'm not ever going to make it. No, he saw it as like, they're telling me, they're giving me instructions that I need to become a citizen of the U.S. instead of saying like, oh, yeah, what is over? No, because if you want it, you're going to go ahead and take it. Just like Edgar did at that time. He had something in there. He said, if I leave right now and go to New York as a kid, I'm not going to do what I like to do, which is play baseball. And sure enough, that's the way that it played out. That's the way he did it. Funny story about him. It took him. He's now at the National Baseball Hall of Fame, right? In 2009 is when he was inducted. However, it took, guess how many years, Carlos? 10 years. 10 years. He was nominated, and it took that long for it. And I heard, I don't know. Do you know anything about baseball, Kenny? Yeah. So I heard it's like right now it's like a huge. Well, it's been a topic forever, but like to get into the Hall of Fame was like all kinds of weird process and stuff like that, right? Yeah. So it's all kinds of weird things that happen at the Hall of Fame to get into the Hall of Fame. But eventually he did it. So he joined the Hall of Fame with some of his idols that he looked at one time or another. And just to be part of it, he was like, man, before he actually went into try out for the Mariners, he was working 2 jobs, a security, and I believe it was some kind of warehouse job. And at that time, he's still working a regular job. He had a goal to make it, and sure enough, he did. He had to do what he had to do. He played alongside also Ken Griffey Jr. So at that time, I think the reason why he wasn't as popular that is because Ken Griffey Jr. at the time, they were in the same team at the same time. So he was one of the Ken Griffey Jr. was one of the biggest stars at that time when he was playing. And usually, he took a lot of the spotlight because Ken Griffey Jr. was hitting, he was doing very well. In 1995, the American League Division Series, he hit a double, which won the series and increased public support for the Mariners baseball as they attempted to fund a new stadium. And he continued to play until 2004. And another thing about him, he has some kind of eye condition, right? That a lot of people didn't know that, a lot of the times he couldn't really see the ball that well. And even one time he got hit in the face because he had to, I don't know, it was some weird way that he had to adjust. Even though he was playing professionally, he had issues with his eyes. And that's crazy. That's crazy. Literally, you need your eyesight to, especially baseball. He was able to manage, but one time he recalls getting hit in the face because he wasn't able to see the ball. And that's crazy to me. That's wild. Anyways, yeah, that's his most memorable hit that you probably remember him from 1995. And they played against the Yankees at that time, and he hit that double, and that put him. He was gonna be the Hall of Fame because he was a great hitter. Again, he's one of the best designated hitters that there is. First of all, so he was already gonna make it, but that just put him in another category as far as more memorable baseball moments when he hit that ball so well that we wow, that's what's up. Yes, sir. All right, so this is pretty much all we have for you on the Global Latin Factor podcast for today. Remember, again, we are just like you. We're human. We're just a spice in this global melting pot that it is the world. We'll see you next time with another episode of the Global Latin Factor podcast.